Okay, next one. So this one has a graph of two lines, and it says which one is a point of intersection. So you notice that they all had the y value at 2, but then it's the x value. Is it a half, is it a third, is it a fourth, or is it an eighth? So let's start going and eliminating. So we know a half doesn't look right because that's in between. So let's try and substitute and see if this one works with both equations. So I have 5 times 2 equals 8 times 1/4 plus 8. So I know 1/4 of 8 is 2 plus 8 is 10. And 5 times 2 is 10. So it worked for that one. Next, try the next one. 7 times 2 equals -8 times 1/4 plus 16. Well, 7 times 2 is 14. And we know 1/4 of 8 is 2, and a negative makes it a -2 plus 16. So then we got 14, and 14 equaled 14. So we were right. And did you see how we just started off, and if you look at the half, that the line intersects like kind of at the quarter mark. It's in between the half and the 0. Next question. At which point do the two equations listed intersect? So notice how many points they intersect. They intersect here, and they intersect here. Okay, for this one you're definitely going to need your calculators. So we're going to start off by taking this and substituting. You have x and y, and we're going to see if it intersects or if it's a point on both of them. So if I do 1.8 squared, I get 3.24, which is about 3.2 if I round to the nearest tenth. Then let's look at the left one. I have 3 times 1.8, which is 5.4, plus 5, which is 10.4, equals, and then I have y is 3.2 plus 4 times 1.8, and that gives me 10.4. So the first one works for both. Now let's try the second one. I have x is -2.8, square that, gives me 7.84, which is about 7.8, and then substitute it in. So 3 times -2.8 is -8.4, plus 5 is -3.4, equals, and then I have 4 times x, which is -2.8, is -11.2, plus the y, which is 7.8, which gives me -3.4. So far A and B are both working, but let's look at why C is wrong. C says right here it intersects both equations, and it definitely does not do that there. So D is your answer. This is a really good question for the EOC. This can be a little confusing if you don't pay attention to what it's asking you. Okay, so remember, whenever it says f of x or g of x or h of x, they're talking about the y value. Because remember, we learned that f of x equals the same thing as y. So if I go ahead and I look at what is f of x, okay, so, and where equals g of x. So I'm going to go over, and that's right here. So the coordinate there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. So that means the y value is 3. G of x equals h of x. So right here is g of x and h of x. So that's the coordinate 0, -3. So the answer for that one is -3. So what happens when I add those two numbers? I get 0. So for questions 4 and 5, the last two questions, it tells me to use this table. At f of x equals g of x at the coordinate 0, -7, it does, because both of those were the same. So that is true. If f of x equals g of x somewhere on this interval, does it? So let's look between x being negative 3 and negative 2. Do you think there's a possibility anywhere between those 2 points that could be equal? So I'm looking between the numbers, and here's the thing. If I look between negative 10 and negative 11.5, there's no way f of x could be equal to that, so that's going to be false.